The debate continues and some stances have been clarified. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Russell here, and today we're going to talk about the second full day of debate that's been going on in the House of Commons about the Budget Implementation Act. Now this has impact on people who are on benefits, different people across the spectrum of different ages, and who's going to get support going forward. How are the Liberals going to spend our money? What do these other political parties think is wrong with this budget? What are they going to change? Well, we've gotten some more clarity. Specifically, the Conservatives have come out with their stance when it comes to the treatment of seniors. Obviously a lot of controversy there because of only people over age 75 getting certain support and then 65 plus. Well, there's not much there for them, but we have some clarity on what the Conservatives think around this issue now. And there's also been a debate that's arising around something called mind leak and how that could potentially scar Canada's future. Some interesting points brought up there. And also we're seeing an issue of people being charged tax on certain benefits that they didn't even receive, along with some other calls for the future of benefits and what the Conservatives think we should do going forward with that, in contrast to what other parties are saying. So in this video, we're going to cover everything I just touched on in as much detail as we possibly can, and I'm going to show you some clips of the things that I think are most important to you from this 4-hour plus debate that I'm sure you don't want to watch all of. But before we do, make sure to check out the links in the description, one of which is to my favorite cryptocurrency brokerage right now, that's Newton. Right now you can get $25 if you deposit $100 for cryptocurrency trading, and I have a video here on the channel about my thoughts about how to actually go about doing this in a safe way, so just search Russell cryptocurrency and you'll get all that information. But now let's dive into this debate and what's most important to you. We're going to start with the new information for seniors, then we're going to get into that whole mind leak issue, and then we're going to talk about benefits and what certain politicians' views are about how those benefits are going to potentially wind down going forward into the future. But first on this seniors topic, well, you know, there's been a lot of debate around it because of the changes to OAS. Liberals want to top this up, increase this for people over the age of 75 or older, but the people from 65 up to that age, well, they're not going to receive much support. Obviously, when a certain group of people is able to receive a little bit of support and the other groups aren't, well, it's going to cause a little bit of frustration. And some of the political parties have recognized this, and they're saying, hey, this doesn't make sense to create two different classes of seniors. Clearly, the Bloc Québécois, man, I can't talk today. The Bloc Québécois are strongly in favor of allowing everyone all the way down to 65 to increase their OAS. But now we're actually getting some clarity from the Conservatives on what their stance is here. Now this is significant because when it comes to the committee stages of this bill, which is the next step here, well, depending on what these people say right now, we could get some hints as to what amendments and changes they want to put into the bill in that committee phase. Let's listen into exactly what was said.
This budget fails to provide security for all seniors. Unfortunately, this budget leaves many seniors behind, and what we're seeing with this budget is the politics of division that is practiced by this Liberal government that is putting one group of seniors against another. And Mr. Speaker, this goes against everything the Canadians have stood for in the past as far as fairness to all Canadians when we put our budgets forward.
So here we see Conservative Member of Parliament Colin Carey from the Oshawa area, a riding that's actually pretty close to where I live. Well, he's a Conservative and now he's coming out and saying, hey, we see that the way seniors are being treated is wrong in the Conservatives' eyes. So let's take a little bit of a poll here. We've got the NDP who have said similar things. If you watched the video yesterday, Bloc Québécois are most strongly in support of lowering this limit to 65. And now we even have the Conservatives hopping on board, and the Green Party did as well. Not going to show a clip from that today because it was just a small statement, but it seems like every single other party, well, they're in support of sort of changing this, but the Liberals are saying, no, we want to keep this at the 75 year that we initially said. Now, yesterday we heard from Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister who brought forward this budget, and she had a little bit of a lackluster response when it comes to why they were doing this, and just saying that seniors, well, they're happy that the 75 plus change is coming. A little bit of a less satisfying answer here, right? But what we're seeing today from certain Liberals in response to what the MPs are saying here that we just watched, well, it reveals exactly what the Liberals' thinking might actually be as to why they're not willing to lower this down to 65. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
I really want to get a clear answer on why there was a two-tiered system set up for our seniors in this country. Can I have an explanation on the $500 one-time payment and the OAS increase only being extended to those 75 and over? I really need help understanding this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
What we know from the data is that the older you get, The more you burn through your savings, the more you burn through your retirement, the more expenses you incur as a result of healthcare and so on. Would you rather take the available money for those top-ups and give it to just people over 75? Or would you rather go all the way back to 65 but give people less money? Do we give more to people over 75 or less to everybody?
So we're getting insight here on what the Liberals are actually thinking, right? Before, Chrystia Freeland was just sort of avoiding the answer, but here, this Liberal MP responds to the Green MP's question, saying, hey, well, we were faced with a decision, either give a larger amount to people over 75 or less to everybody. That's what they're sort of using to rationalize the way that they're handling the senior system. Now, it is a little bit of an interesting way of thinking about it, especially given the way the Liberals are rationalizing how much money they're using and how much spending they're doing, saying, hey, right now we're at record low interest rates, so we can borrow a bunch of money so that we can support Canadians in the ways that the Liberals deem fit, right? So it's a little bit interesting that doesn't seem to expand here to this issue of including seniors between 65 and 74. He sort of speaks about it like there's a hard cap on the amount of money the government can spend, which is sort of against the way the Liberals have been acting, spending so much money, $100 billion in stimulus that some people believe isn't actually going to stimulate the economy. Some people believe that it will. I'll leave that up to you. And also an additional around $500 billion in debt taken on over the next year to implement all of these changes and all of these government programs, right? High degrees of spending, but yet he's talking about it in the context of the seniors issue like there is a hard cap and they couldn't have taken out a little bit of extra money to solve this problem, right? So it's a little bit interesting the way that they're like replying to things in different ways based on what issues currently being talked about. But the Liberals go even further here, rationalizing their decision around this 75 plus age based on something that happened in 2019. Let me show you.
In regards to the 75 plus, that was an election promise. We, in the 2019 election, we made a promise. We said that we would give a 10% increase to seniors age 75 and over. And Madam Speaker, that's exactly what we've done.
So essentially what Kevin Lamoureux is saying here, this is a Liberal MP, well, he's saying, hey, this isn't actually a COVID help, right, for these seniors. This is just an election promise from back in 2019 before the pandemic even started. So the question that people are asking, like, why is it 75 plus is, well, hey, that's what we promised back in that 2019 election, and we're just fulfilling a campaign promise. This isn't directly related to the pandemic. At least this is this Liberal's point of view. But all in all, it seems like there's a lot of support mounting against the Liberals when it comes to the way that they've treated this 75 plus issue. Almost every single political party that's in the House of Commons coming out against it. So we're going to have to keep our eyes peeled, especially when it gets to the committee phase, to determine whether or not they're going to make this change so that this increase of OAS would be more applied to everybody who is currently on the OAS program as opposed to just 75 plus. But now let's talk about something I'm finding pretty interesting called Mind Leak. Mind Leak. This is a way of referring to the way that many of Canada's youngest and most talented and brightest and the innovative Canadians that we're raising up through the Canadian education system, well, the data is showing that they're actually being poached by other countries, and that causes some big concerns for the future economic growth of the country, which is so important, especially given the fact that the Liberals are basing this whole budget off of saying, hey, as long as we can keep growing our economy, we can take on more debt. Well, if we don't have the young Canadians to start new businesses and innovate in these tech industries that are largely going to be a part of the economy in the future, well, what does that mean for us? And Colin Carey actually brought it up in his speech as well, so let's listen in on that.
We're making investments to educate kids for the jobs of the future, but because of this government's lack of opportunities for kids to stay in this country, they unfortunately are leaving, and they're leaving in accelerated numbers. So we see the United States, but also China, India, Italy, United Kingdom, Japan, they are going to be winning the future technological race with our own Canadian students. And Mr. Speaker, our youth is our most important investment and our most important resource. We need to do things to keep them to stay in this country.
And it seems like this might be one of the rare things that the Conservatives and the NDP actually see eye to eye on. Let's listen to what this NDP member of Parliament had to say about their plans to support students and try to get them to stay actually in the country so we can grow Canada instead of different countries.
So I completely agree with him that this is a dire situation. We would actually relieve some of that student debt that makes it very hard for students to stay in this country, makes it very hard for them to start their life and contribute to our economy. We're looking at a $20,000 student debt forgiveness, up to $20,000. I'm just wondering if he would support the idea of reducing federal student debt, or if he would rather that the federal government continue to make profits on the backs of students.
I would like to point out, by relieving the debt of students doesn't stop them from leaving.
So essentially the NDP are saying, well, if you want to keep young Canadians here, why don't you just follow us with our plan that we want to cut $20,000 of student loans on people who currently have student loans, just eliminate that, and maybe young Canadians will be better off. Colin Carey replies saying, hey, this isn't actually going to keep people here. It's just going to, hey, let's give you some debt forgiveness and then you can leave. Well, there could be some questions about, hey, why don't we make this potential loan forgiveness tied to actually staying in the country and potentially going into some sort of industry that's highly expected to be a large part of Canada's economy going forward. These are potential ideas on how these two parties could come together. But again, we're going to have to keep our eyes open to see what they actually do about all of this. And finally, we've got some information about the winding down of benefits like the CRB, the CRCB, some of these employment insurance extensions. Well, before this, we didn't really know exactly what Conservatives thought about this plan going forward. Are you in support of the the Liberals' plan to sort of slow down this benefit, lower the CRB to $300 a week from $500? Well, an NDP member of Parliament asked them exactly this question, and this was the response.
And then eliminating the supports to individuals through the Canadian Recovery Benefit, or CRB. Does the member agree with the NDP that this move is premature and that there are plenty of small businesses across the country, including in the restaurant business and the tourism sector, that will need continued support to recover from the consequences and the economic consequences of this pandemic?
Conservatives from the very beginning of this pandemic worked with the Liberals and other parties in this House to try and design some of these assistance programs as best we could. For sure, there are businesses that still need assistance, and we want to see those programs still there for those businesses who need it. But this can't be the new normal. These can't go on in perpetuity. We have to see a clear path to an end to these lockdowns and restrictions, get Canadian businesses back open, but that will only happen if the Liberal government starts procuring and distributing vaccines as soon as possible.
So he makes his stance pretty clear here that he expects for these supports, whether it be the individual supports going directly to Canadians or the larger business supports, well, he says, well, these need to start winding down to get us back on track. We need to make sure that we can open up because people don't want handouts, they want jobs. Businesses don't want handouts, they want to be able to open. This is where the Conservatives are coming from when they suggest that these benefits be wound down. And I think overall, when it comes to this bill, it's going to be very interesting watching this going forward, because on certain issues inside of this mega bill, right, it's around 700 pages when you look at it online. It's really big. So there's a lot in here that people could potentially have issue with and debate. It seems like there's support mounting against the Liberals in some aspects of it. But again, it's important to remember that all the Liberals need to get this bill all the way passed is just the support of the NDP. If the NDP support the Liberals just like they've said they're going to because they don't want an election, well, this budget could just pass in its current form. So we've got to keep our eyes open for that and get an understanding of how these votes could work out and what it really means when these politicians are saying what they're saying inside of these debates. And I want to know what you have to say about all of this. What do you think about the seniors issue? Do you think this mind leak where software engineers and tech industry professionals for the future of Canada, well, they're going to different countries to get better jobs? What do you think of that? And what do you think of the way that the Conservatives think that these benefits should be rolled down? Is it more important to get more jobs for Canadians in certain industries that could see growth in the future, or do we need to transition to a future where there's more government support handed out to people, like many people calling for a UBI? Certainly with the vote in the Liberal Party, there's support growing for a program like that. But depending on what you think about it, let me know down in the comments. I read every single one and try to comment on as many and reply to as many as I possibly can. And while you're down there, check out the links in the description, specifically the 45% off coupon code INVEST for the Canada Money Mastery program, where we teach you all about how to save more, how to earn more, and how to invest that to retire earlier than you may have expected. We're adding new content to that course all the time, so check it out, see if it's a good fit for you. And with all that said, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time. channel is supported by viewers like you. Thanks, channel members.